Stay tuned for one of the most unusual and fascinating hours you'll ever hear. The subject is UFOs. Welcome to the ParaNet UFO Continuum, a one-hour program dedicated to a very strange phenomena, unidentified flying objects. Whether or not you believe UFOs exist, the controversy is real, and this program will try to get to the bottom of it. Your host is Michael Corbin, Director of ParaNet Information Services, a global communications network based near Denver, Colorado, dedicated to the investigation of UFOs. We invite you to keep an open mind as we discuss one of the most fascinating and strange subjects in the world. Here's your host, Michael Corbin.
And good evening and welcome to this edition of the ParaNet UFO Continuum. The subject tonight is cattle mutilations, strange animal deaths in Missouri. And this is an unusual case because this case is being investigated by our sister organization, MICAP. That stands for the Multinational Investigations Cooperative on Aerial Phenomena. And joining me in the studio tonight will be the International Director, Brian Wood. We're going to talk about what took place in a little town known as Trenton, Missouri, back in June 21st. And we're going to get a lowdown on that, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. You might want to get a pencil and paper handy tonight. We're going to give out some addresses and some phone numbers that you might be interested in. I'd like to also appeal to my audience in the Missouri area or Iowa, adjoining state of Iowa, if you're in these areas. I would be very interested in hearing from you tonight. We're having open lines as well. You can contact us on 1-800-836-2009. That's 1-800-UFO-2009. I'd be interested in hearing from you if you've seen any unusual, strange lights in the sky. We've got police reports here detailing witness sightings of a green object in the sky over the area where the mutilation took place and surrounding areas on June the 21st. And if you have any story you need to tell or would like to tell us, we'd like to hear it. Or if you'd like, contact us. We'll give you another 1-800 number for you to reach us off the air. You can call us at 1-800-387-2001. That's 1-800-387-2001. Now, let me get you up to speed here on what's happening. I was contacted last week by a friend of mine, a radio personality in Kansas City, Missouri, Rick Roberts, who does the, I believe it's the afternoon drive time there on that station. And he contacted me and said he had had a call from a person in Missouri who had an unusual report of a strange animal death. And so he put me in touch with this person, and I talked to the guy. And for purposes of this program, his name is Chet. I talked to Chet about what took place, and I was told that on June the 21st, he received a call from a rancher who reported that he had a heifer calf that he had discovered that had been killed in a very strange way. Chet went out to the site, which is in a remote area around Trenton, Missouri, which is north, about the central part of the state, northern. And they went out there to investigate this. And the first thing he noticed when he walked up to it was that the animal was laying under a tree, almost up to the trunk of the tree. And noting also that this was a very thickly foliaged area, there was nothing disturbed. I asked him if he had seen any branches broken or anything. No branches broken, nothing disturbed, no tracks going in or out of the area, just this dead cow laying under this tree with its body almost up against the trunk. Now, he being a veterinarian, has a background in veterinary medicine, noted that the animal had not died of pneumonia, and he told me after 15 years of investigating this stuff that he was able to tell whenever an animal died of what he called natural causes like pneumonia, black leg, and some other common cattle diseases. But the thing he noticed was that there was an incision from the breastbone all the way back to the udder. And being that he did not have his what he calls sleeves, which is a slang word for surgical gloves that go up to, I believe it's beyond the elbow for those types of examinations. He has a policy not to handle an animal who dies under mysterious circumstances, so all he had was a scalpel. But nevertheless, he determined that this incision was a very straight, precise incision that was made, and there was also another 6-inch incision on the animal where he described 2 handfuls of intestines were protruding. He also noted that the right eye was gone. The flesh around the eye was not taken, though. It was just as if somebody had sucked the eyeball right out of the orb. And it was just a very bizarre circumstance, and he was quite rattled by it, particularly mostly how the animal could have gotten there without any signs of showing it. He said it was as if it had materialized there. Now, what we do know about animals when they die, or cattle particularly when they die, is they go through an agonal phase where they will thrash about on the ground. What's interesting is this animal did not have any damage to the rectal area or the sexual organs that we could tell, or he could tell at the time. However, what happened was he left the scene, and on the following Saturday, he saw encounters at a program concerning cattle mutilations, and Chet contacted the producers of that and was put in touch with a gentleman in New Mexico who he talked to find out, all he could about this mysterious way an animal dies. And the person in New Mexico encouraged him to go back to the site to determine if the tongue had been taken. So Chet returns back to the site on Sunday, which is, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days. 4 days after discovery of the animal. He returned Sunday to the site to check and see if the animal's tongue was removed. Using surgical gloves, he said he reached down and grabbed hold of the animal's skull and went to pry the mouth open, and he said everything just fell apart in his hands, that the meat was mushy and that the hair was a strange color. The other notable feature that really upset Chet was that the grass within about several feet of the animal around was completely gone. And when I asked him what he meant by gone, did it just die? He said no, it was completely gone, as if it was not there to start with. And remember, June 21st, on the Wednesday, he did see that the animal was laying in a lush green grassy area. The grass is gone. So he did determine that the tongue had been surgically removed quite far back into the oral cavity. And of course, this brings to light a very interesting case of another mysterious animal death. What makes it more interesting is that he determined later that a police department in a neighboring town about 35-40 miles from there had numerous reports of unidentified flying objects. And on that day, on June the 21st, in the wee early morning hours of June 21st. And we had the ability, Brian Wood, who's the international director of MICAP, was on vacation at the time, and he was making his way back to Denver. And I was able to contact him and ask him to make a stop in these two towns, and that is what we're going to be talking about this evening. And we're going to talk about what is taking place with the investigation, because this provides us with a very unique opportunity to start looking at this mystery in a very scientific way, because as Brian will describe later this evening, we are going to be having these samples submitted to reputable soil sample engineers and also pathologists to determine what caused the death of this animal. We're going to also talk about the police report and some other things that are going on in that area. So once again, if you've got a story to tell, give us a call. We're open lines tonight, 1-800-836-2009. That's 1-800-UFO-2009. I want to hear from you. Give us a call. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet UFO Continuum. We'll be right back.
There are many magazines about UFOs. Continuum is different. Continuum is the official quarterly publication of ParaNet and MICAP, and is the outgrowth of ParaNet's worldwide communications network on paranormal phenomena. It's in-depth, challenging, and above all, fascinating. It takes a straight-ahead, no-nonsense look at UFOs, worldwide sighting reports, parapsychology, abduction phenomena, futuristic science, and much, much more. You can get Continuum for just $18 a year. Continuum is also available by fax for a small additional fee. Be informed. Call now and subscribe to Continuum. Call 1-800-UFO-NET-1. That's 1-800-836-6381. Continuum, published by ParaNet Information Services and MICAP. Order yours today at 1-800-UFO-NET-1. Continuum, one of the most fascinating magazines you'll ever read.
Month after month, we hear the laments. Where are the quality investments? Interest rates are down. Bonds and IRAs flat. Well, one investment has surfaced recently, paying enormous dividends. It's priced reasonably, it's simple to purchase, and while you can't buy it on the stock market, you can buy it at your supermarket. It's any product or packaging made from recycled materials. When you buy those products, the paper, plastic, metal, and glass that you've recycled gets put to good use, and recycling keeps working to help protect the earth. So look for products and packaging made from recycled materials and buy recycled. In a world of investments, it's the only one that means the world to all of us. For a free brochure on buying recycled, call the Environmental Defense Fund at 1-800-CALL-EDF.
This message from the Ad Council, the U.S. EPA, and the Environmental Defense Fund.
You're listening to the ParaNet UFO Continuum. Whether or not you believe in UFOs, there's a lot about the subject you haven't heard. Stay tuned. Keep an open mind. Call in and join the discussion. Once again, here's your host, Michael Corbin.
Ann and I were talking about mysterious cattle mutilations in Missouri. And once again, if any of you out there have a story to tell, or particularly in Missouri or Iowa, I want to hear from you. 1-800-836-2009, 1-800-UFO-2009. Let's go take a call. We've got Lane calling in from Salt Lake City on our affiliate KCNR. Good evening, Lane.
Good evening.
Thanks for calling. What can I do with you tonight?
Exactly what part of Missouri was that?
That was in around Trenton.
Trenton, exactly. Okay. I'd like to give you some more information about that story.
Okay.
First of all, cattle are basically, on June 20th, about 21:45 hours, there was a cow that was picked up from the Trenton, Missouri area. Basically, several features of this you can verify from your own story. The grass was deteriorated due to gravitational field destruction, and I believe one of the eyeballs was removed. Basically, what I'm offering you right now is some proof that you have never had before, and very few people on this planet have ever experienced. I'm now offering to you and your listeners. I'm going to make a statement to you right now that's going to shock you, but it's something that I think you've been waiting for a long time.
Okay, what is it?
I am an alien.
You are an alien.
I am, and I have information regarding this cow. Basically, we took the eyeball of that cow for atmospheric restoration and duplication so that we can function better in your atmosphere. We've had a hard time seeing through this lightly viscous fluid that you humans survive in. So we took this we took this eyeball and some of the other parts of the cow, analyzed some of the biological mechanisms that you operate under. We thought that basically a cow being a low-grade intelligence animal would be an appropriate animal to take and utilize for our experiments. We basically mean you no harm, but we want you to know that we're here, we're watching you, and if your listeners have any questions they'd like to ask of me at this point, I'm on the air now, available to them and to you for anything you'd like to find out about us.
Okay, Lane, we were going to take and move on, okay? We want to thank you for your call. Okay, let's get back to business. I just I can't buy that, Lane being an alien. Just doesn't quite cut it. This isn't the right program for that. But anyway, if anybody else has a story to tell or they'd like to talk about this this case, give us a call. 1-800-836-2009, 1-800-UFO-2009. Now, what is a cattle mutilation? Let's talk a little bit about that. Generally, when we're talking about a cattle mutilation, and Chris O'Brien, the fellow down in the San Luis Valley of Colorado who has investigated numerous cases of that, has chosen to dub them mysterious animal deaths, a term that I kind of like myself to denote this type of a problem with these animals. But anyway, basically the classic, as we've seen in the past, and one that we've investigated ourselves in May of '93 in Fairplay, Colorado, is the animal seems to have a right eye missing. The flesh around the eye seems to sometimes be taken. The tongue is gone. The jaw is stripped of flesh. Generally, the rectum is cored out in a perfectly round, circular way. The sexual organs are usually removed surgically, and the blood, or the animal, is exsanguinated, meaning generally that most of the blood is removed. And by the way, in this particular Missouri case, the animal did appear to be exsanguinated, although Chet was unable to verify that. However, what he did do is he took his scalpel, he said, and he cut deep into the muscle tissue in one of the flanks, and he said it was extremely light pink, which indicated to him that the animal had been exsanguinated, or at least, most of the material was taken. However, these cases do not stand up well to the explanations of predators. The cuts, the incisions that are made, are generally, as we've heard reported, have been in a cookie cutter fashion where you've got serrated edges and they're visible under a microscope. The reports that go along with that are that they are cut with generally high heat, although that's not consistent in all cases. And of course, one case that we ourselves talked about on this program several months ago, one that occurred in Greeley, Colorado, where the witness was a biologist. She said that she examined the tissue under the microscope and could find no evidence of cellular disruption, meaning that there was no cells disrupted, and according to her and her scientific background, that is absolutely impossible under any technology that she knows of, because even the sharpest knife or even a laser burn or any types of instruments that could be used to cut with are going to damage cells. And she said that this appeared to as if the cells just let go wherever the incision was, and there was no damage to the cell walls at all. And that's quite a feat when you stop and consider how small cells are. But anyway, generally these mysteries are surrounded also by UFO sightings and helicopter sightings. I have a good friend who is a retired Cascade County, Montana sheriff, Keith Wolverton. He's also been on the program before. He's investigated numerous cattle mutilations in the Montana area, and those reports, which kind of came to a height in 1975, involved a lot of helicopter activity, people seeing helicopters in and around the area. And of course, helicopters are no stranger around mutilation sites. Now, the witnesses in the Missouri case, which Brian is going to talk about here in a little few minutes, the witnesses in this case saw triangular-shaped UFOs and circular-shaped UFOs, or actually the triangles and the circles changed, they just changed shapes. We're going to talk about that, the witnesses' stories too. But nevertheless, in a classic mutilation case, we seem to have a very high amount of high strangeness associated with the animal deaths. And again, like I said, predator the predator explanation does not stand up well. That leaves us with a couple of questions. Who is doing the mutilations? Are they aliens from space, or are they the product of some top secret paramilitary group or the government, as some people have suggested? We don't know. But we do know that it appears that these animals are being left for us to find, and for whatever reasons, it appears that it might be some type of psychological reason, maybe. Calling card, as Dr. Richard Sigismund has suggested, someone who appeared in Linda Howe's Strange Harvest back in the early 80s at the end of the program. He suggested that they were being left by design, so that human beings would be aware that somebody was here. Not necessarily for the purpose of food, because a lot of these questions just don't stand up when you start analyzing the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Why would they take them if they don't want to be detected? Why would they take these animals and throw them back out for people to find? Why not just dispose of whatever is left over after they're done with it? I don't know. It's a big question, and it's one that's very interesting and one that deserves a lot of study. And this is, again, one of the things that we're going to be doing with this sample and other samples as they come in. And we're going to talk a little bit about MICAP tonight, so that we can get you aware of what is going on as far as UFO research. We'd like to have you join us. We're looking for people all over the country who have an interest in perhaps finding out what's going on and getting involved out there in the field, and establishing a network of people. This is one of the things that ParaNet and MICAP have done so well in the past, not only electronically, but also, people networking with people. So 1-800-836-2009, 1-800-UFO-2009. When we come back from break, I'm going to introduce the International Director, Brian Wood. We're going to talk about the particulars of this case and get down to some serious business. So stay tuned. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet UFO Continuum.
ParaNet and MICAP, the Multinational Investigations Cooperative on Aerial Phenomena, gives you a chance to hear and read more about UFOs and the paranormal. Catch up on our previous ParaNet radio shows with cassette tapes you can order for $8 each, or 2 tapes for $6 each, 3 or more at $5 each. Become a member of ParaNet and subscribe to Continuum, ParaNet's quarterly magazine. And don't forget our stunning black t-shirt with a background of galaxies, stars, and comets, the ParaNet and MICAP logos, and a beautiful blue-green planet Earth. When you order from ParaNet, you're helping to support this program. Call now for more information or to order your tapes, Continuum subscriptions, or t-shirts at 1-800-UFO-NET1. That's 1-800-836-6381. ParaNet, your window on the universe, at 1-800-UFO-NET1.
Grab a pen and get ready to copy down a computer address. It's an email address where you can reach the ParaNet Information Services BBS through America Online. With America Online's Internet Gateway, you can send us mail, and we can respond to you personally through your America Online screen name. With America Online's Usenet Newsgroup tie-in, you can also access the 7 ParaNet newsgroups dealing with UFOs, metaphysics, paranormal activity, and others. Learn about our upcoming shows and pose questions in advance. And if your question is selected, you'll get a free cassette copy of the show. You'll also find summaries of past shows. If you're not already a customer of America Online, call 1-800-827-6364 for more information. Now, here's that email address to reach us. It's paranet@aol.com or paranet@paranet.org. America Online and ParaNet, a winning combination.
The mystery of UFOs, strange lights in the sky, crashed saucers, alien abductions, secret military projects, government cover-ups, hoaxes, and frauds. We cover it all on the ParaNet UFO Continuum. Now back to your host, Michael Corbin.
1-800-836-2009, 1-800-UFO-2009. We're talking about cattle mutilations or mysterious animal deaths in the Missouri area. And joining me in the studio tonight is the International Director of MICAP, Brian Wood. Good evening, Brian, and thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Brian, are you on there?
Hello.
Yeah, we're going to get him up here. Okay. Well, he's going to get his mic turned on. We're not sure why he's cut off, but anyway, Brian is going to bring us up to speed on a, the report that we got from. There we go. You got it. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening.
The marvels of modern technology. Okay. Anyway, now you are the director of the Multinational Investigations Cooperative on Aerial Phenomena, and you happen to be on vacation, and you were coming back through Missouri, so you made a little detour. Now tell us about, you were an eyewitness now to the site, which the animal was still there, and you were going to, what happened? What did you see?
Okay, well, is this thing working now? Okay, good. As you said, I was on a cross-country vacation going all around the country, and I might add that it's very difficult to be in the right place at the right time with UFO investigations. I was in Gulf Breeze, Florida, didn't see a thing. I was in Roswell, New Mexico, didn't see a thing. Lubbock, Texas, didn't see a thing. And in fact, the whole trip, I didn't see a thing. But fortunately, on the way back, we were able to stop in Trenton, Missouri, and talk to this veterinarian, Chet, who took me out to the site where the cow was mutilated, and it was indeed extremely unsettling. The site where this occurred was underneath a tree. Now, most cattle mutilations that we're familiar with seem to be more out in the open, as if the cow has been, picked up by some means and then dropped from a height. A lot of times the limbs of the cow will be broken, and there's even reports of the cow being carried through the air. Some ranchers have taken pot shots at so-called black helicopters carrying cows underneath them. This does not fit that category. There's no way that this object could have been dropped from any height. It had to have either walked into this area on its own or been carried there somehow without disturbing any of the grass around it.
Of course, now, Chet said that there were no signs of footprints going in or out of the area.
Right. Now, I'm going to take his word on this. If you're familiar with really tall grass and a really heavily wooded area, I'm not personally sure how you can tell. But he's lived in the area for 15 years, and he swears that there was no grass modified in any way in that area until he got in there. Mm-hmm. In fact, he could see signs of predators having come up to the site but backed away probably within 10 feet of the cow. In other words, they got up to a certain point, the grass was obviously disturbed, and then they walked away from it. This was the second day after having seen it the first day. So it was very strange. The grass was, I walked through it, and it was waist high, except where the cow was lying. And it had been 3 or 4 weeks probably since the cow had been mutilated. There were obvious signs of predators having ripped the cow to shreds by then and dragged it through the grass. And the interesting thing is that as these pieces of cow were dragged through the grass, everywhere it was dragged, the grass had died. The grassy area underneath the tree was completely gone. It was blackened. It was a very odd. The ground was just very odd.
When you say blackened, are you talking about the blades of grass were black?
There was no grass. This is just the ground itself had a kind of a blackish tinge to it.
Like it'd been burned, maybe?
I don't think so. the rancher supposedly was going to burn the cow, but we do not think he did. That probably would have just pretty well destroyed the cow, and there were still pieces of flesh around that had obviously been dragged around by predators. It was very hot, sticky, and humid that day. As you know, in the Midwest, they're having a
heat wave.
big heat wave, and it was over 100 degrees and high humidity, and it was miserable in there.
Now, what did you do out there?
Okay, what he did was he had gotten permission to take some core samples, so he had special tools to dig into the ground. Just like astronauts would take core samples out of the moon, we were taking core samples both from an untouched area of clean grass and what he referred to as ground zero, which is basically the area right around where the cow had first fallen.
Now, what are you going to do with these samples?
Well, and in addition, we have other samples of grass nearby, bone fragments, flesh, and other things. We will take these samples, which have been very carefully itemized and marked as to which comes from where on the ground, and we will take them to toxicology experts who will try to analyze them and tell us what agents killed this cow.
Okay. Interesting, very interesting. The grass really bothers me. I cannot recall in the years that I've been studied this stuff that there was ever any vegetation that was killed around one. Have you ever heard of that?
I can't either.
Very unusual. Is there any? Were you able to tell anything at all about any of the cuts or anything like that, or was the animal too far gone by this time?
No, I wasn't. It was way too far gone. But the veterinarian Chet made the comment that after 15 years of examining cattle and all kinds of animals out in the country there, that he had never seen this kind of death before. He had seen cattle destroyed by lightning, disease, predators, and you name it, and this didn't fit any of those categories. And he said categorically that there was no question in his mind that this was caused by some agency off this planet.
I've heard that one before. Okay, when we come back from break, we're going to talk about the police report that you have to talk about. Apparently there were 4 independent witnesses as well as several law enforcement officers.
That's right.
Who saw an unusual light in the sky on June the 21st in that area. We're going to talk about that. 1-800-UFO-2009, 1-800-836-2009. We'll be right back. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet UFO Continuum.
There are many magazines about UFOs. Continuum is different. Continuum is the official quarterly publication of ParaNet and MICAP, and is the outgrowth of ParaNet's worldwide communications network on paranormal phenomena. It's in-depth, challenging, and above all, fascinating. It takes a straight-ahead, no-nonsense look at UFOs, worldwide sighting reports, parapsychology, abduction phenomena, futuristic science, and much, much more. You can get Continuum for just $18 a year. Continuum is also available by fax for a small additional fee. Be informed. Call now and subscribe to Continuum. Call 1-800-UFO-NET-1. That's 1-800-836-6381. Continuum, published by ParaNet Information Services and MICAP. Order yours today at 1-800-UFO-NET-1. Continuum, one of the most fascinating magazines you'll ever read.
It's the natural thing to do. When a computer gets a little too old and becomes unproductive, you put it out to pasture. But your old computer still has life in it, and the power to give new life to people with disabilities. Computers you've written off as useless can prevent millions of people from being written off. They can train people with differing abilities to sparkle with the skills society needs. That's how your old computers can help us develop this precious human resource. In the process, we might just discover another Beethoven, Albert Einstein, Franklin Roosevelt, or Helen Keller. Donate your old computers to the National Christina Foundation, a not-for-profit foundation. Call 1-800-CHRISTINA, 1-800-CHRISTINA. Machines you can write off, people, you can't. Donated computers and office equipment are tax deductible.
This is the ParaNet UFO Continuum, a weekly program dedicated to the mysterious and fascinating world of UFOs. If you're interested in learning more about ParaNet, the world's foremost communications network dealing with the UFO phenomena, call us at area 303-429-2654 or write to Box 172, Wheat Ridge, Colorado 80034. Once again, here's your host, Michael Corbin.
And welcome back, my guest, Brian Wood, the International Director of MICAP. We're talking about Brian's eyewitness investigation of a mysterious animal death in Missouri. And, of course, our group, MICAP, is going to investigate this with the cooperation of people in the field in Missouri and other places. And, this is an interesting opportunity firsthand to really get into the middle of this and find out what might have caused that death of that animal. It's quite bizarre, Brian.
Everything about it is bizarre.
And I've seen the photographs. Brian took some video footage of the area, and I can tell you that after seeing those, and the experience that I've had over the years with this stuff, this is quite an unusual case. It almost looks like some kind of a, I dare say, biological material that might have caused the death of the grass around there. It's just really strange looking.
Yeah, and what's even stranger is the consistency of the flesh. One of the first things Chet noticed about the mutilated cow was how, as you said, how spongy the flesh was.
Right.
And even after several weeks, when I went out there and a lot of it had decayed and predators had gotten to a lot of it, there was still some flesh remaining around some of the bones, and he poked at it with a stick, and it was very odd.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
you wouldn't want to cook it for dinner, let's put it that way.
I guess one of the things that makes these cases more interesting, too, and I think most people will agree that in the investigation of this stuff, there's been a lot of UFO groups, investigative groups out there for many years, and I myself was very frustrated. I got interested in this in 1989, and I was very frustrated at the lack of scientific methodology that was being applied to the research, and this is why I'm so excited about this case. But now, it's always better to have witnesses. Now, of course, we don't have any eyewitnesses to the mutilation of the animal, nor can we directly really tie unidentified flying objects to this case. However, it's interesting to note that you have a police report here, and you're going to discuss 4 boys who were camping out in a small town and who saw something very bizarre.
Right. This occurred probably within hours of the mutilation. It's a little hard to tell which came first, but let me just read a portion of this. This is the Cameron, Missouri Police Department report.
Don't give out the names, of course, but just...
Right.
Yeah.
On June 21st, 95, when I reported for duty at 0700 hours, Officer X was telling me about several reported sightings of unidentified objects in the western sky. The first report of the object was at approximately 0056 hours on 6/21/95. The objects were reported to us by the Missouri State Highway Patrol in St. Joseph. According to them, they had a call that came into their office at 0055 hours reporting that a green light had just gone down in a field approximately 2 blocks west of Cameron. Officer X said that several people in Cameron had also reported seeing a bright light streak across the sky and crash just southwest of Cameron.
Okay, now we've got this is on June the 21st.
Right.
They've got a green light that's gone down in the field.
Right.
Okay. Now, real quick, get over to the guys, the boys.
Okay, well,
describe what they saw and how they saw it change shape. I think that's very, very interesting.
all right. Let me expand on this just a
Okay.
little bit before I get to the boys. The reason that so many people saw this out there is that there had been a fire that caused the fire department and police department to be out in the middle of the night. This occurred, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's why there were so many people out there able to see this thing. And it was because of that they saw, even the police captain saw a light off in the distance that he couldn't explain, and but he didn't see any sign of a UFO up close or anything. But there was unusual aerial activity that night, and after the boys appeared at the police station later that morning, not much later, just a few hours later, they called around at the various airports to find out if aircraft had been in the air. Everybody was concerned that a plane had gone down, and they verified through all of the airports that there were no aircraft expected to be in the sky. So anyway, these teenage boys showed up at the police station on their own and said that they had seen a UFO up close. Let me get to the point in the report here, and I'll just read it. The boys wanted to report that they had seen a UFO in the southwestern sky. Okay, he asked the boys to come back later, and he put them in separate rooms and questioned them independently. And the stories they told were identical, and they were obviously not lying. At least it didn't appear that they were.
He was impressed
making this up.
Sure.
Yeah, they were scared. He said they were white as a sheet when they came in to report this.
Okay.
They had been camping. Let me see here. This one kid said that he and several of his friends were camping southwest of Cameron on a highway. They went to a house to get some food and clothing. When they were coming back, they saw an object flying in the sky. Jamie described the object as being green, oval-shaped, and hovering. He said that the object scared him and he jumped in a truck. As soon as he had jumped in the truck, a bright green light lit up the entire sky around them instantaneously, and then the object was gone. Now, the boys actually drew pictures of what they had seen and have a written description as well in this report. If I go to the pages where they're actually drawing what they saw. Now, these are teenage boys. The drawings are not the best I've ever seen. But, for example, one of them is an oval-type object. It's marked side view with a green light. It turns into a triangular object that's red, and it says, came closer, went away, came closer, then zigzagged. And then the third morphing of this object showed it back to its original oval shape, but half lit up and half dark. One of the other boys also drew an oval object, and again, these were in separate rooms. And then he mentions that it lit up half of the object, and then he saw it transform into two triangular-shaped objects. The other boy's report is impossible to really make out. It's just a bunch of ovals and triangles. But you can tell that they saw something very unusual in the sky, and it just happened to be in the same area as a cattle mutilation the same day, which is highly unusual.
Now, I also want to mention, too, that there was an officer, too, that night that had reported that the object had lit up the back of his patrol car, and that this light that it was giving off was pretty intense, and it would probably imply that the object had maybe come pretty close to the patrol car. Also, I want to note, too, that triangular-shaped objects have been associated with sightings and cattle mutilations in Alabama. There were several there several years ago, and the interesting thing about the morphing of the object from circular or disc-shaped to triangular-shaped was also something that we heard about in Belgium. Something that was made quite famous by Unsolved Mysteries when they did that special on the Belgium UFO. The gendarmerie, the police officials saw what they saw were triangular-shaped objects that turned into balls and shot off into the sky. Very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, tell us real quick, we've got about a minute before we go to a break, and tell us real quick about what you need for people out there in the field to do if they want to get involved in UFO research. How do they contact you, and how do they get information on MICAP?
Well, through our 800 number, which actually doubles for the ParaNet and MICAP number, you can call 1-800-836-6381. That's 1-800-UFO-NET1. That's also our order line, so you can order information. But basically, we'll send out a packet of information about ParaNet and MICAP. It's a 2-page description of how MICAP works and what we're looking for and what the benefits are. Basically, MICAP was formed to be a scientifically based UFO investigations organization, and we are looking for people all over the world, not just the United States, it is multinational, who are interested in researching UFOs in a scientific way. We don't take to kooks. We prefer people who have a scientific background, who have computers, who can network everything together, and who have a solid interest in solving this mystery.
Okay. All right, well, let's go to a break, and when we come back, we'll hear a little bit more about this mysterious case. My guest is Brian Wood, and he is the International Director of MICAP, the Multinational Investigations Cooperative on Aerial Phenomena. And we're talking about the mysterious cattle deaths in Missouri that took place June the 21st, and we'll talk a little bit more about that after we come back from this break. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet UFO Continuum. We'll be right back.
It's been said the pen is mightier than the sword. With ParaNet, the computer and modem is mightier than the pen. ParaNet is the world's foremost electronic authority on UFOs and the paranormal. ParaNet gives you rapid access to UFO researchers, investigators, and others like you who want to know what's going on. You'll find stimulating discussions, valuable resources, and best of all, an interactive link to the world through the Internet's information superhighway. There's a variety of departments dealing with paranormal activities, parapsychology, alien abduction research, conspiracy theories and government cover-ups, and cutting-edge science. There's even a skeptics conference. ParaNet also has the world's most comprehensive database of news articles, sighting reports, and much more, available for a small fee. So plug into power and knowledge with ParaNet. Call the data line at area 303-429-2713. That's 303-429-2713. Or for more information, contact ParaNet at 303-429-2654.
Pilots, when you fly, you need convenient, accurate information for safe flight and landing operations, as well as local businesses that provide you with the services and treatment you deserve. The Skyway Publications Airport Directory and Entertainment Guides are what you need. These are free pocket-sized guides giving you information about large and small airports all over the country. Information like radio frequencies, runway systems, coordinates, and taxiways, as well as fuel and aircraft services provided at the airport, and local businesses catering to private pilots. It's yours free. Ask the fixed base operator at your favorite stops to carry the Skyway Airport Directory and Entertainment Guides, or call area 303-669-1800. Skyway Publications, your ticket to safer, cheaper, and more convenient flight. Talk to the FBO at your favorite destinations or call Skyway Publications at area 303-669-1800.
Truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. Finding out the truth is the hard part. Join us in our search with the ParaNet UFO Continuum. Here's your host, Michael Corbin.
And welcome back, my guest, Brian Wood, who's the International Director of MICAP. And as usual, we're out of time. We never seem to have enough time to do it. I want to thank you for being on the program, Brian.
Thank you.
And we're going to have you back to tell us about what you determined about the samples, the grass samples, soil samples, and tissue samples.
Right, we got them all.
If anything else takes place, okay?
Great.
Great. Thanks a lot again for being on the program. Brian Wood, International Director of MICAP, and again, we need people to interact in this quest for the truth. And if you're interested, give us a call. You can reach me too off the air at 1-800-387-2001. That's 1-800-387-2001. And I'd love to talk to you if you have anything you want to report about in the Missouri or Iowa area that pertains to this case. Give me a call. And I also want to mention real quick that one thing you might want to do is, if you're in the Denver area, I eat at the Metropolis Cafe at Colfax and Logan Street in Denver. They have the best authentic Greek food I've ever had, and I do go out there a lot, and I'd like to see you there. Stop on in sometime. That's the Metropolis Cafe, located at Colfax and Logan in Denver. You won't be disappointed. They've got authentic Greek food, Euro sandwiches, moussaka, whatever you like. So I hope to see you there. And I want to thank the producers of this program, Brian Wood and Greg Barman and Daryl Bear, for all their hard work, and the crew at Poor Joe's at 970 Lincoln Street in Denver. Again, another one of our second offices. So, next week, we'll see you at the same time. I'm Michael Corbin, telling you to keep your eyes on the skies. Good night.